I think it represents a level of behaviour that is completely unacceptable. We have to be able to operate on the basis of confidentiality. Our relationship with the US, particularly in terms of intelligence and security, is our most important relationship globally. And I think this sort of leak is unprofessional, it's unethical and ultimately unpatriotic.
And what does it say about the state of our government when, you know, the UK's ambassador in Washington cannot send confidential memos without them being leaked?
Well, of course, it's not a UK-only problem. Here in the US, that's also has been a problem. I think it says a lot about the ethics of individuals in a system that generally works very well, to have one or two people who maliciously, for political or other reasons, decide that they're not going to fulfil their own duty of confidentiality, I think is at best very disappointing. I think this is a particularly serious case, and I hope that if we're able to find the culprit, that heads will roll.
It can't be that difficult to find them. Very few people would have had access to this. Do you think it's the civil service, or would you say it's politicians?
Impossible to say at the moment from any information that I have. I think that if you look at the number of documents involved, that the circulation may be relatively narrow. But of course, we all face a situation in our society nowadays where people get copied into things without that being necessary. And I think that we all need to be very careful about the processes that we have about copying emails in particular.
So you think memos like this about our most important ally under the presidency of Donald Trump get CC'd to various different people, do you?
Well, I'm not sure exactly who will have been copied. I think it's a general problem that we have. But we have to have a situation where our embassies around the world, and that goes for our partner nations as well, they also have to be able to get a frank assessment from their own diplomatic staff about what's happening in the UK. We need that to happen to be able to have democratic systems working properly.
Isn't it most likely, though, to be a politician who has taken offence to Sir Kim Darroch's basically pro-Europe view? It may have been a Brexiteer.
I have absolutely no idea, and I think speculation is pointless until we carry out a proper investigation.
OK, Donald Trump takes these things very personally, as you know. Will it complicate what you're there to do, which is to negotiate the basis for a future trade deal?
No, we'll be talking across the administration to various individuals, and the same on Capitol Hill, to talk about market access issues. Of course, you have to remember that in the United States, not all trade policy is actually made by the federal government. A lot of trade policy will be done at the state level, so getting a better understanding of what happens there is important. It's worth pointing out that if the states in the United States were independent countries, 4 of them would be in the G20.
Right, and I understand that you're planning to apologise to Ivanka Trump, the president's daughter, but these were the sort of honestly held views of the UK ambassador. What do we have to apologise for exactly?
Oh, no, I'm not apologising to anyone in particular, but what I would, I think, say is that, you know, it's a great pity that we can't depend on the integrity of our own system to be able to ensure that those views are kept confidential. You know, all my time when I practiced as a doctor, you worked in an arena where confidentiality was centre in terms of how you carried out your work. And it used to be that that was true in politics. It now seems that some people think that their personal views or their personal vendettas or their personal missions take precedence over the national interest. That can never be allowed to happen, which is why whoever is responsible needs to have the book thrown at them.
Yeah, I mean, but you said earlier you'd be apologising to Ivanka Trump. I don't understand quite why. Surely the apology should go to Sir Kim Darroch.
I didn't say I was apologising to anyone in particular. I read it in the Times this morning. But I think it's fair that we should be saying to our American counterparts that it's a pity that we've been unable to maintain the integrity of our own system. As for our ambassador in Washington, I think he's a fine public servant who's done a very good job. But clearly he's been let down by the political system itself, whether by accident or, as looks more likely, by design. And that sort of malevolent behaviour cannot be tolerated.
Right. I mean, the Prime Minister says she doesn't intend to apologise to President Trump. Much of what Kim Darroch said, are quite widely shared opinions that, you know, people believe that it might be a slightly dysfunctional administration, to say the least. Do you share those opinions?
No, I don't share those opinions. And in any case, it's not what the ambassador said that is the issue here. It's about the inability of the system to be able to transmit that confidentially to ministers. Ministers require to have that absolute certainty that the conversations that go in both directions are genuinely confidential. Without that, the trust on which we base our democratic system starts to break down. That is the real problem.
OK, just a couple more. I mean, what should happen to whoever is found to have done this if someone is discovered to have done this?
Well, it depends who they are. It depends on the level of classification of documents involved. If it's an internal disciplinary matter, that has to be dealt with the utmost severity. If it is a criminal matter, then it needs to be dealt with by prosecution. We simply can't allow this thing to happen.
And if it was a senior minister, they should be sacked immediately and possibly prosecuted?
Well, it shouldn't matter. Anyone who breaks the law, whether they're a civil servant or a minister or anyone else, should be subject to the full force of the law. And that's what I hope will happen here.